Welcome back to the Coded With Me videos for Chapter 15. In this video, we're picking up where we left off, but we're actually going to be dealing with the floating folder. So, back in your files, go to the floating folder and load up the index page, which should look something kind of like this. If we close these, we close coin, close positioning, go floating, load up the index. The page has two sections of examples, top and bottom. All the content is stacked. We will be using the floating property to wrap the first paragraph around the first image. So in brackets, we're going to display the index file. Study the code in section ID example 1, right here on line 11. It consists of three siblings, a heading right here, an image, and a paragraph. Now display the CSS. There are a few simple rules to style the boxes to make them easy to see, but nothing too advanced. Click after the closing brace of example 1p, so example 1p right here, closing brace. Enter twice, we're going to say example 1 image. And this image we're going to float left and close your brackets because we are good developers. So once you save and refresh the browser, you notice that, hey, the image has now moved alongside the text, and the text moves over, giving the image plenty of space. So it kind of bumped in, and the text fills in the space occupied by the image, but the text is now able to wrap around it. If we want to float the image to the other side, we can just say float right, refresh, and now the image is on the other side, and the text fills up the available space. Now, as the previous example, you notice the image itself was on the left and the text was perfectly aligned. On the right, it is not. If you want images that are floated or items that are floated to the right and the text to perfectly line up with it, then you can say in the p tag, text align justify, and that will automatically line everything up based on the available space, making the spaces in between the words a little different, but things look a little cleaner now. That's not required for this example. Whoa, brackets. I refreshed the wrong thing. All right. Let's see. We're going to give the image a bit of margin. Margin left. Okay. Margin left. 50 pixels. We're spacing the text away from the left side of the image. Save, refresh, and now there's about 50 pixels of space between the left side and the image itself, allowing the text to not seem so crowded. In the next activity, we're going to move to example 2. So, right after example 1 image, we're going to go down here, example 2. Example 2. Image, float left, and margin 0, 1em, 1em, and 0. Now, in case you fell asleep in the last chapter, let me just do a quick review. Since we have 4 different values, it's going to start at the top, go to the right, go to the bottom, and then go to the left, basically starting from 12 o'clock and going clockwise. So if we save, we refresh, and now the image itself has been floated next to the text. If we take that out and just take another look at it, you notice the text is below it. We add that back in. The image is now alongside the actual text, which is good. But we're not exactly done yet, because if you notice, the next element, well, kind of comes up alongside it. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go back here. Let's see. Add a new rule at the bottom of the page. Example 2, H2, clear, left, save, refresh. And now you see that heading 2 has been moved down below the image. What this also means is that the previous item, the text, moves alongside the image because the image is floated left, has a bit of margin on the right and the bottom, and has the text beside it. And then the heading 2 down here clears the previously floated element, in which case it is the image, allowing for anything else prior to just fill up the available space that the image is taking up. A little hard to understand, but trust me, once you start getting things a little better and easier, such as float right, you'll notice that the space is taken up as well. We say clear right, then it does the exact same thing. And if we say clear both, then clear both automatically clears both sides, the left and the right. So even if we say clear or float left, the images will be on the left, but the heading 2 will still be cleared regardless of whatever side the images are floated on above. Okay. Let's see. So we fixed that. Next is going to fix this back to left. Going to go back to the index. Click after the opening section ID example 2, right here. After the opening one, line 19, we're coding a new div tag. Okay. We're wrapping everything inside of a div tag. That seems pretty easy. Save. We use a div element because it conveys no meaning as it is used for styling purposes only for this example. We use similar steps. Wait. Whoop, my bad. We were supposed to just wrap the items in divs, not everything. But we are supposed to wrap everything just in 2 different divs. There we go. Okay, so we go back to the floating.css. Delete the example h2 rule. Save, refresh, and now we have the floating issue again. So now we're going to add, go away. Now we're going to add a example 2 and div. And for this, we're going to say border F00 solid 1px so we can actually see what's happening. So you can see that the first div right here with the heading, the image, and the text has all the content, but the image is actually being floated outside of the element. That's because as soon as you float something, it takes it away from the normal flow of the page. And because the div contains the floated element, but the floated element is taken out of the flow, then the div only has the text to base the size on. Well, the other div has the heading, the image, and the text, but because the text moves down here, it basically fills up the space. So one easy way to fix this is the overflow fix. So for this, we're going to add to the div tag overflow auto, not overflow fix, overflow auto. That means that even though we have a floated element that is going to take the div tag and contain everything that's floated inside the element. So that way it'll automatically space it out. We save our CSS, we refresh the page, and now you can see that the div tag stretches to fit the floated element and the one below it because the 2 elements have floated elements. Alright, the next, the stair stepping is gone. The border of each div shows the height. Div is the parent, image are the children. When the children are floated, the parents collapse. Applying overflow hidden to the collapsed parents forces them to expand as if the floated children were still inside. Bleh. Okay. Now that we've experienced floating, we will float the elements in a real-world page, or in this case, real-world example page, and go back to coins. Hey, look, coins. Okay, let's close these because we don't need them anymore. Let's go back to coins, index, and CSS. Okay, there's a lot of wasted space on the images since they are on their own lines. We want to have the text move up to the same line as the image. So let's go to brackets and go to the bypass rule. Hey, there you are. Going to add a new comment. Positioning, spell positioning right. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is specify article and image. And close our brackets because we're good developers. Box shadow. X is 0, Y is 0, blurb is 10 pixels, and the color is black. Going to float it to the left, and we're going to specify a margin, top of 0, right of 1 rem, bottom of 1 rem, and left of 0. Save, refresh, and hey, look at that. We have a nice glow for the image, and the text is right next to the image. Okay. Let's see. The image floats to the left and the text next to it wraps around it. A subtle outer glow has been added along with the little white space. Because there is so much text, no unwanted rendering issues are triggered. However, the top of the image and the top of the heading are not aligned. Right here. So to do that, we're going to add 2 declarations to the article image rule and move it down a few pixels so it top aligns with the heading. Okay, so here we're going to say position, relative, and top of 10 pixels. Basically, we're pushing the image down by 10 pixels. We save, we refresh, and now they line up better. If you didn't have the position element, and you just said top 10, well, the browser doesn't know what to do, so it doesn't really know what to do with the top. Is it relatively positioned? Is it absolute positioned? Is it fixed positioned? It doesn't know. So you have to have a position in order to use the top, left, right, bottom. And by saying that, we now bump it down 10 pixels. Let's see, floating in need of a fix. So we're going to go to the bottom again. Floating with collapsed parent. And that sounds so morbid. We're going to click to the right of the new comment. Okay, we're going to add the new following rule to float all 3 images within this section. So 1, 2, and 3. To the left. So section img, wrong bracket, float left, and specify a margin of the same, 1 rem, and 0. Save, refresh. And now the images are floated left, but then we have this stair-stepping issue again. What we're going to do is we're actually going to add a new rule down here. Section H2, these are H2s, and say clear left, because the elements are floated left. Save, refresh. Now the H2 elements are clearing any floated elements above it, which means that this text and this link are now in the same space as the image because the image is floated left, and the text and the link are in the available space that the image creates by being there. And the H2 clears the previously floated elements, making it easier to organize. But once you get to the bottom, you realize that, hey, we got an issue down here because this image goes beyond the border. So what we can do is we can actually say, go to the floating collapsed element, new row, okay. We're going to go to the bottom again, section, and overflow, hopefully you know what's coming next, hidden. Save, refresh, and boom, we have it. Our image is in the same space as the section, and the text and the link appear next to it, and the border appears nicely below it. Okay, so the last activity, or last set of activities, going to be moving away from this coin page and working on Flexbox. So let's go away from coins, close the CSS, close floating, and go to Flexbox. Open the index, go to the Finder, go up one, Flexbox, image, index, here we go. All right. So in the index page, we'll basically take this stuff right here and create 3 columns with it. So this consists of a single div wrapper right here and 6 children, an h1 p tag, h1 p tag, h1 p tag. In the CSS right here, Going to add a new rule or new declaration in the wrapper rule and define it as a flex container. So to do that, we specify display and flex. Save, refresh, and it kind of tries to fill up the space only based on the available information that it has. So we're going to actually create or fix that. Let's see, columns have been created, but they are not what you want. So remember that each child of a Flexbox container turns into a flex item, so each of the 6 children became an individual column. Our goal was to create a column for each heading paragraph pair. We'll have to edit the HTML structure in order to make this work. So we go back to the HTML. We will nest each heading paragraph pair inside a new semantic element, main and A side. The 3 semantic elements will become the children of the flex container. So inside the div wrapper at line 10, going to code a main tag. Click after the closing p tag on line 13. Close the main. Select these 2 items and tab them over. Use similar steps to wrap the heading and paragraph for the other items inside an A side for each of the other items. So A side, tab that over, and tab this over, A side. No, we're not closing or opening it. And close it now. There we go. So now it's a little better. I'm going to clean it up a little bit. There we go. All right, save, refresh, and now that looks a little better. The main and the 2 A-side elements have become flex items and create our 3 columns. Your page should look something similar to this, and the next activity will be styling the flex items. So we're going to go back to brackets and edit the wrapper rule to change the default flex direction to show you what it looks like. So in flex.css, we're going to say flex direction, and by default we have row, but in this case we're going to say row reverse. Save, refresh, and now you see the main content appears on the right because it has the row aspect, but it's displayed in reverse. If we change flex direction to column, then it's going to display all the items in a column, which makes it nice and easy. However, if you say column reverse, then the exact thing what you would think would happen is it reverses the columns, making it nice and easy. Content-wise, you notice that the main content still shows first in the code with sidebar 1 and sidebar 2. We are manipulating the visual aspect, basically the DOM, in order to reorder all the content. So if you try to highlight it, you'll notice that we have sidebar 2, try to go to sidebar 1, but because sidebar 1 appears before sidebar 2, it doesn't quite work, and then the main content appears before sidebar 1. A little kind of neat trick to work with. Let's see. So we're going to delete the flex direction declaration so it reverts to the default of row, or you could just say row, either way. There we go. For the next item, we're going to narrow the browser window as small as possible. And if you notice, the columns do not wrap, they just get narrower. So what we're going to do is, since the default behavior of flex wrap is no wrap, we're actually going to make it wrap. Nice and easy, right? So inside wrapper, we're going to say flex wrap, and we're going to say wrap. Again, the default is no wrap. So we save, we refresh, and okay, the columns are gone. Flex wrap seems to have broken the columns. For flex wrap to work properly, the flex items must have a fixed width set, which is what we're going to do. So main and A side, going to set a width of 200 pixels. Nice and easy. Save, refresh. And now each of the items has a width of 200 pixels. Okay, once the browser window reaches a certain width, the 3 columns no longer fit side by side. Boop. Instead of narrowing as they have a fixed width, the rightmost column, sidebar 2, moves down to the next line. As the window narrows even more, sidebar 1 bumps down as well. So maximize Chrome, return to brackets and edit the value of flex wrap declaration to wrap reverse. Okay, well what does that do? Save, refresh. Visually, it does nothing. But as soon as you decide to resize the browser, notice that instead of sidebar 2 bumping down 1, we now have sidebar 2 bumping up 1 and the main content bumping down. So as soon as it's narrow, super narrow, sidebar 2, sidebar 1, main content. Okay, neat little trick. Delete the flex wrap declaration, or you can actually set the default as no wrap. And delete the entire main and A side rule because that was fun while it lasted. Okay, back in index.html, A side, we're going to identify this. ID was side, what happened? ID sidebar 1, and down here, ID sidebar 2. That's easy. Back in the CSS, we're going to specify a few rules. So main flex of 1, sidebar 1, flex 1, sidebar 2, flex 1. Could we have used first and last children nth of type? Yeah, but it's a little easier to do this. So this is what we're going to do. So now we have set each of the items proportional to each other with the flex item of, we have set each item proportional to the others by setting the flex size or the flex item to 1. If we say the main of flex 3 and save, actually, you know what, before I do that, save, refresh, and now each item proportionally takes up the same amount of space. If we say flex 3, so flex 3 and the others say flex 1, we save. Now the main content takes up the majority of space, basically 3 proportion versions of the available space. So let's see. The two sidebars have equal width, but the main content is 3 times as wide. Next, we're going to go back in and we're going to specify the order. So even though the flex or the main has a flex of 3, we're going to specify order of 2. The sidebar 1, order of 1, and sidebar 3 or sidebar 2, order of 3. Bleh. Okay. Basically what we're doing here is we're taking this 3-column layout, having the A side after the primary contents, but we're displaying the sidebars on the left and right side of the page. So as soon as you do that, you save, you refresh. Now we have sidebar 1 on the left, sidebar 2 on the right, main content in the middle, and we didn't modify our HTML at all. Okay, for the last activity, we're going to ready the HTML back in the coins. Oh, look, we're back at coins. So we're done with this, we're done with this, go back to the coins, open in HTML, click after the opening section. Sorry, let's go back. On the coins page, after a second look at the bottom portion of the page and after receiving feedback from your client, you decide arranging the bottom contents in columns will look better than 3 rows of floated contents. So we're going to go back here and turn these floated items into columns instead of rows. So we need to go back to the HTML, click after the opening section tag of line 37 right here, ish, after the opening section, okay. And we're going to create a div, going to close that in a div, going to open up a new div, close that in a div, open up a new div, and close that in a div, and Beautify works for us. Okay, so we have 3 sets of div elements with a single blank line between each one to help maintain readability. The div elements will become the flex items when their parent section is made to be a flex container. So we can go back to the CSS, fast Eddie. click at the end of the floating with collapse parent comment right here. Code the beginning CSS comments. I'm going to start that. And notice everything turns into a comment until we close it. Actually, this should be right here because we're still keeping the overflow. Okay. Create the Flex container. Let's see, tap enter twice. Flex columns. Section, display, flex, and that is the only required rule in there. So now we save, we refresh, and the items display as columns. But the items don't display as equal columns because of various reasons. So we're going to go back and correct that. So inside section div, we're going to say background color hashtag FAEBD7. Use every letter except C. Border radius 5 pixels. Let's save, let's refresh, and now we can see that the section and the divs have, well, little borders, and that's nice. We're not done yet. I'm going to close our wrapper. Going to say flex of 1, giving them all the equal width. Okay, that's good, but we're not done yet. Margin of 0 and 0.5 rem to give the top and bottom 0 and left and right 0.5 rem, which spaces out a little more, and a padding of 1 rem to space the content away from the sides. There we go, things look a little better now. So all the columns display at the same width because they are set to flex 1. The other properties in the rules should be obvious to you by now. With the background color applied, it is obvious that flex columns have equal heights regardless of their content. While the columns look fine, each heading could also use a little styling. So let's go back here. Let's say section H2, close that. Background color hashtag 876327. Border radius 5 pixels. Let's save, let's refresh. Okay, we're stylizing the H2s, good. Color, triple F, margin, top of 0, which removes it from the top, and then we have the spacing, good. And last but not least, text align center. Save, refresh. And now the headers will look more like headers now of sections versus just standard text headers. But we're not done just yet. We need to return to brackets and add a final rule to center the images inside the columns. So inside the section, we have section img, opening, closing, display block, just to make sure we're doing things right, and margin of auto. You can say margin left auto, margin right auto. Margin auto just takes care of all 4 sides. We save, we refresh, and now the images are center aligned. And that is everything for chapter 15. Hopefully you learned a lot in chapter 15. If not, please send me an email or hit me up on Twitter. I'll get back to you with the best possible answer. Until then, take a look at the assignments, and hopefully the assignments by now seem a little less daunting than they were previously. Until next time, let me know if you have any questions. We'll go ahead and start chapter 16 next week.